What a matchup we have on our hands. Javokhir Sindarov, a huge Uzbek talent, takes on Arjun Erigaisi, one of the finest youngsters in the world of chess. E4, C5, Arjun goes for the Sicilian, and we have a close Sicilian here. Arjun brings his knight out to C6 and Sindarov plays knight F3. Wow, is he going to go for now open Sicilian? G6 played by Arjun. He is favoring the dragon opening in this tournament, and Sindarov is happy to go for the dragon. He says to Arjun, let's go bishop e3, because dragon is considered one of the most exciting and aggressive openings out there. At the same time, it's very sharp, and I'll explain to you why that is the case. Firstly, Sindarov wants to play his queen to d2, thinks for a bit, moves it. Why queen d2? You want to long castle here. Arjun plays his knight to f6 and now pawn to f3 played. Black castles. Here's the point. Because there is a pawn on g6 now, it will be used as a hook to open up the position. Arjun goes bishop e6 and he tells Sindarov, I'm okay if you take here because your f3 pawn has been weakened because of your move g4. So Sindarov says, I'm not interested in your bishop, Arjun. I'm ready to long castle here. He long castles and Arjun now chops off on d4. Bishop takes d4. Queen comes into a5. Now Arjun's plan is to go rook c8, rook b8, b5, b4. Meanwhile, white wants to go h4, h5. Who's going to reach there first? We'll see. But meanwhile, bishop a2 is a big threat here. So Sindarov just simply moves his pawn up to a3. But does this become a hook now? Can black open up with b4, b5, b4? Because if you play b5, the problem is you lose a pawn as of now. So you can't do b5 straight away, but you can prepare it. You can play rook b8. You can go for b5, b4. But will Arjun want to do that? Yes, he does. He plays rook a b8 and look at his time. He has 16 minutes on the clock while Sindarov is already down to 10 minutes. Now, king b1 played. He brings his king to safety. So actually what Sindarov is doing here is that he's not ready to push his pawns down the board for an attack. What he prefers to do is he wants to go at the right moment, the move knight d5. With that, what will happen is he will go into an endgame. h4 played. Oh my god, change of plans or what? h4, he may want to go h5 now, opening up. This is going to be very exciting and Arjun must quickly do something, or else Sindarov will play h5 and open up lines towards Arjun's king. And so Arjun taking his time, and there you go, b5. His idea is to push b4 here and make it very, very difficult for Sindarov to attack on the king side, because the queen side is opening up. And there you have, Sindarov is ready to play knight d5 and trade queens. So Arjun takes on d2, rook takes d2. Now notice there's a small trap here. Knight d5, you mustn't take ed5, because then after bishop takes, oh, it's possible, because here I thought there's bishop f3, but actually there's rook h3 attacking the bishop, and then rook g3. White is doing very well. So actually bishop d5, knight d5 is okay for white. He takes with the bishop though and takes here, and now the a7 pawn was hanging, so Arjun defends it with a5. Believe it or not, this position has been reached several times before. We are already on move 17 and this is still hardcore theory. Moves that have been played here are h5, c3, bishop a7, but Sindarov goes for bishop h3, and now we are in fresh territory, it seems. Rook c7 played by Arjun so that g5 doesn't come as a discovered attack, and now rook comes to e1, attacking the pawn on e7. Arjun plays his knight to e8. Interesting decision. Generally, you want to play your knight from d7 to c5, but here the e7 pawn was hanging, so he goes knight e8, and now the pawn comes up to g5. This diagonal is opened up, but there is nothing much to attack there for the time being. Arjun goes king f8. You can feel it that in this position, the knight is the one who's sort of misplaced. But Arjun has some plans for it. If you take on g7, he wants to take with the knight, maybe go to h5, then to f4. Rook e4, I really like Sindarov's move, because now this rook can move also along the ranks. Bishop d4, rook takes d4. And now, where does Arjun activate his knight from? Knight g7, knight h5 is a possibility, but he first goes b4 and he trades. Now, notice the pawn on b4 is limiting two white pawns, but at the same time, it is a weakness. Imagine that the other rook moves in here and keeps attacking this. So Sindarov first fixes that weakness. Always keep this in mind. If there is a weakness on the chessboard, you must first fix it so that it cannot run away and then you attack it. That's what Sindarov plans to do. But Arjun can enter with rook c3. Although he doesn't do that, he goes rook a7 and he tells Sindarov, maybe I'm coming here with my rooks to enter your position. Well, not to be afraid, Sindarov plays king b2 because now rook a8 is met with rook takes b4 and a check is pointless because the king moves up. So it's not very useful. How does black continue? Knight comes out to c7. Now, Arjun wants to play his knight from a6 to c5 where it will be beautifully placed and no one can move it. Then the knight would be superior to the bishop on h3. But Sindarov says, sorry Arjun, for now you can't do it. Why you can't do it? We'll see. First the knight is attacked and if you go to a6, yes you are coming to c5, but Sindarov has prepared rook d4 to attack b4 even further. Knight a6 played and now rook d4 is a powerful move here because then your knight cannot move. Once your knight cannot move, this pawn is hanging. Beautiful chess here by Sindarov and you can't play rook b7 because then bishop c8 really causes some big grief. So Arjun is now under pressure, but on time Sindarov has 1 minute 51 seconds. Arjun has 5 minutes. So that is in his favor. He goes king g7. He's being calm. He maybe wants to open up with h6 and swing his rook over to h8 if possible. But look at Sindarov. He goes f4. Beautiful move because now h5. f5 is coming up and then the black king could be in trouble. h6 played. And now maybe the plan, as we noticed, take and rook h8 to activate the rook from here. So Sindarov says, let's trade the rooks, Arjun, and Arjun should just play rook b7 and let Sindarov take. But Arjun is ambitious because his opponent has only 31 seconds, so he plays rook b6. Bad move. Why? Because the remaining white pieces are very active and a beautiful move is f5 now to open up the king side. Will Sindarov find it? He has only 20 seconds left, but he finds it. Beautiful chess by Javokhir Sindarov, showing why he's one of the best youngsters in the world. He is now simply crushing Arjun because there are many threats like fg6, gh6, bishop can pop into e6, rook can swing over to f4, the rook can go to g8. Too many things to worry about for Arjun, and he's come down all the way to a minute on the clock now. Is Arjun going to lose this one? That would be a small upset for sure. G takes f5, bishop comes in, and now in order to keep the position closed, Arjun plays h5. But notice this pawn has become a huge weakness because the bishop can swing over to d3, then to e2 and attack it. That's what Sindarov does. Firstly, he says, look, your knight is attacked and b4 is weak. Arjun says, okay, fine, I'm going to put my knight on c5. But then bishop e2 is going to attack the pawn on h5. He finds it. Bishop e2. Fantastic move. Now Arjun needs to defend that pawn or else he'll simply lose a pawn and then the h pawn will run down the board. Where do you do? Oh, he goes e5 and Arjun's plan. Now look at trickiness of Arjun. D takes e6. He wants to take with the knight. Maybe then his knight can jump to f4 if possible. So he goes rook c4. And now can Arjun play rook b a6? Because then if rook takes b4, you can go rook a1. That could have been counterplay. But he goes king g6. And now Sindarov gives a check. No, he plays rook h8. And he tells Arjun, your h5 pawn is gone. You are losing that pawn. Well, what does Arjun do next? He goes king g7 and he tells Sindarov, take the pawn. Your rook will be kind of misplaced. So he goes back to c8. And now maybe Arjun can come back and defend the pawn on h5. In a nutshell, you will see that it's white who is calling the shots. Black is just reacting for the time being and Arjun is happy with a draw. But of course, a youngster like Sindarov is never going to be satisfied with a draw in such a position. He wants to beat Arjun and that's the reason why he's thinking hard. With 13 seconds left, he must take care of the clock though because no clear plan is apparent. He goes rook c6. Arjun first chops, pawn takes, and now can you go rook c7? to win the pawn on c6. If you go rook c7, yes, you will lose b4, but you will win the pawn on c6. So Arjun does go rook c7, but Sindarov has an additional option. He can play bishop f3, defending the pawn. And the point is that if you go e4, I can take it. I can take here, and then that would be better. I would be pawn up because b4 would also fall. Arjun now, after bishop f3, goes king f5. And his point is that he wants to play e4 without losing his pawn. But this is not a great idea because b4 falls first, and now h5 falls. And this is actually big trouble. Now if you take here on c6, you are losing the pawn on f7. So Arjun has to be very careful about the way in which he deals with this. He says, I'm putting all my hopes and aspirations on this little pawn on e3. Sindarov goes king c3. Smart decision though. He wants to stop the pawn when it goes to e2 with king d2. But Arjun takes, no, he doesn't play. He plays king e5, and his point is no king d4 now. No king d4 in the position. He stopped it, and now he's threatening to take on c6. Rook to b8 played with very few seconds left. But now can we just take? Because if you play bishop f7, there is knight d7, discovered check, and you lose the rook on b8. These are small little tactics that Arjun is not going to miss. He takes on c6, rook e8 check, good move. King moves in to f4. Now can you go bishop f7? Because now there's no rook on b8 to attack with knight d7. He should take it. But no, Sindarov decides to go king d4. This is a bad move. The reason why it's bad is because Arjun's going to play knight e6 check, block the rook on the e file. That's what he does. And now the king has to move back, rook d3, and now you can check again. And Arjun now maybe has chances to get a draw here. Knight c5 check, good move. Knight c5 check. And Sindarov thinking, how does he continue? Because king d4 is a draw. He plays king d4. Arjun happy with the draw, of course, after this huge grim defense. But, or maybe he's not happy. He's like, I want to fight on. He goes knight c5 check. Again, now Sindarov, in order to win, must go king e2. But once you go to e2, knight e6 back, and then the c2 pawn is hanging. How do you deal with it? Yes, he goes king e2. And Arjun comes back. Now c2 is hanging. Sindarov must take care of it. Well, one way of doing it is to play c4. The other way is to take on f7, but then I can still take on c2 with a check. He goes c4, but now the rook can enter via a6 to a2. Oh, he plays it. Rook a6 found by Arjun. What a player. He's attacking here. And now if Sindarov takes on f7, then rook a2 check followed by nd4. So he goes rook e7. He wants to take on f7 with the rook and push the king away from f4. That is his plan. But now Arjun checks. With 5 seconds left, it's a 10-second increment. So king d3. And do you go check? Knight c5 check. King c3 is not leaving his king and plays it. King to c3. Now knight e4 check is an important move here. And then maybe you can push your pawn to f5. But with just 12 seconds left, Arjun goes f6. This is a mistake because now g6 would be powerful. And white gets his own passer and he plays it. Sindarov finding that accurate move. Look at how he's swinging the queen in his hand. Knight e4 check. King comes up to b4. The king has moved up. And now g pawn versus e pawn. Which one is stronger? E pawn is currently, if you push, the bishop can take it. So it's not a big thing there. He pushes f5. Okay, so f5 on the board. And g7. Is the pawn go to queen? Not really. The rook has other plans. It says to the pawn, you can't queen so soon. Now, Sindarov plays his bishop back to d1. That's a nice little move. Later on, if he can move his king away and the b pawn will start to roll. Oh, by the way, h pawn is also rolling. But Arjun says knight f6 I'm playing. I'm going to stop that pawn. But Sindarov pushes knight to g8, attacking the rook. He's a bit confused where to move the rook. Rook a7 is played. Now, this pawn is not moving because knight defends it. So Arjun attacks the bishop. And this is such a big fight now. With passers, knights, bishops, so many things happening. Bishop e2, and important is to play king e4 to prevent bd3. But he blunders now with rook g2. This gives Sindarov a chance to play bishop d3, which is a fantastic move. And he finds it, bishop d3. And if you go and attack the bishop, the king will drop back. White has achieved great coordination here. So rook comes back to g4, g5. And now you can, this pawn is not hanging really, because you can go then rook a8 and win this knight. So king c3, fantastic move, good move by Sindarov, because now he's freeing the path for the b pawn to run down the board. Where does Arjun create his play? He says, I'm going king f3, b4. The pawn is moving ahead. Now if you play e2, then maybe I can just take it, or even go king d2 back. So Arjun needs another pawn. He pushes his f pawn. He brings in resources. b5 played here. And now which pawn do you push? e2, or do you move your king? Not so sure. Not so sure how to continue. There you see Arjun with 15 seconds. So calm, so cool. He plays e2, and now Sindarov must take it. Because after take and b6, he's completely winning. He's completely winning, but he goes king d2. He plays his king to d2, and that is not the best move. Arjun now brings his rook. He's now threatening to give a queen. So you must take this pawn. Oh, he goes king e1. He's not ready to give up that. Now Arjun plays king e2, because bishop e2, there is f3. Even that is playable and winning for white. But the only now care that should be taken is to go maybe rook f7, maybe b6. Can we go b6? But that would lose to f3. No, he goes rook f7. Good move by Sindarov. f3 played, and now c5 was important, but he blunders with b6. The problem is the bishop now does not have squares to go to. Arjun finds rook e3. What a move, because if you move the bishop here, rook c3, rook c1 is just losing. All of a sudden, these two pawns have become monsters. Sindarov can do very little. He takes on e2, which is a bad move. You can see him being very unhappy there. He knew he was winning, but now he's losing. Rook b7, rook b2 played to stop the b6 pawn from moving ahead. h6 played, but can Arjun simply not take that pawn? That looks like a free pawn. Arjun takes it. And now rook f6, you can go back with your knight. But also f2 is very strong. If you take rook h6, then f1 is coming up. So Arjun can actually push his pawn. And he does. He pushes his pawn. Rook g6, check played. Now very important to play king f3, because if you play knight g4, then it's a draw. Knight g4, rook g4, king f3, you give a check. You keep on pursuing the king. No, he blunders with knight g4. And can Sindarov find the move here, which is very important? Knight g4 is a big blunder. He has 37 seconds to work it out. Look at the draw. Take, you go here, check. You can't take because this checks. Queens with a check. If you go here, I keep checking. There is no way to escape these checks. You go to e6, I can queen. So in that way, this is a draw. But can Sindarov find? With just 20 seconds left, he is thinking. No, he goes king c1. What a big blunder, because this allows Arjun to queen the pawn, and this will be totally lost because the queen would be a monster picking up everything. You can see Arjun with his last 10 seconds just making sure he has everything under control, and then queens it. Good move. Queen, king takes, and now there will be checks. The queen is too strong. It will give a check from somewhere and pick up the rook. King c3, queen to e3 check. And now you can see Sindarov very unsure. He loses his first pawn, and very soon is going to lose his next pawn as well. Queen e3 check comes in. King b4. And now queen check. Because if you move further away, then queen b1 check, and you pick up the rook. And what a game this has been. Sindarov resigns there. Arjun fights like a monster from a completely lost position. He's managed to save it. That's the thing about Arjun. His ability to defend, his resourcefulness is so special. He's able to make it as hard as possible for his opponents to win. And Sindarov, who is actually a tactical monster, was unable to break through. A fine victory for Arjun. Well played by Javokhir Sindarov, but he fell short this time.